Hello, and welcome to Random Access. This is PC Mag's daily show on Facebook, where we show off one cool thing that is being tested in the PC Mag labs. Now, I made that little joke about the name at the beginning because today we have a phone, and today we have AJ Kumar, our cell phone analyst, which makes us feel a lot like Dialed In, our Tuesday afternoon show about phones. Because frankly, we're the two phone guys here. We do phones, we do tablets, we do wireless networks, we've got people driving around Canada right now testing wireless networks, and we have our one cool thing, the Kodak Ektra phone at the moment. Now we have Pete down here on the con taking your comments and questions. If you have any questions about phones, about tablets, about the fine nation of Canada, please ask us and we will try to do our best to answer. But for now, what we have for you is this really kind of strange, interesting little phone, isn't it?
It's a phone that looks a lot like a camera, and that's more or less the best way to think of it. It's a phone that can double as a point-and-shoot camera. So this is from Kodak, which is actually not from Kodak.
Okay, wait, stop, screech, record scratch backwards.
Bullet Group.
Right. This is not made by Kodak, the camera company, right?
They license it out to the Bullet Group, which also makes the cat phones, the rugged Caterpillar phones. So, this is made by the Bullet Group, but they get to use Kodak's name. It's kind of similar to what Nokia is doing with
HMD Global, using the Nokia name and some of the Nokia history. And so, but also Bullet is using Kodak software, right?
Right, yeah. It's using Kodak's apps and a lot of their tweaks for the camera.
So what did they do to take the Kodak heritage and the Kodak idea and the Kodak name and make it different from your standard mid-range phone?
So, well, like Sasha said, this is like, when it comes to hardware, it is a standard mid-range phone. But on the camera you get is a 20 megapixel sensor, which is generally a higher resolution than you'll find on most other phones, including flagships. But if you look at the camera itself, I'm going to launch into it. So you get basically a sensor with full manual controls. You get a phone that can shoot bokeh, which is something you really only are starting to see on higher end.
Aren't you supposed to have dual cameras for that?
This one does not need it.
Huh.
Look at that.
Okay, awesome.
So
now one thing I want to point out is that, now this has a 20 megapixel camera, but like last year's Motorola phones had 21 megapixel. What's important here is the physical size of the sensor, the fact that it's a 1/2 inch sensor, which is bigger than the sensor in, say, an iPhone and collects more light.
Right. It's nearly twice as big as an iPhone sensor, so it'll collect more light, which means you'll be able to shoot better in low light. And when we tested it against the iPhone 7 and the Galaxy S8, we found it's a lot sharper, just in terms of just how much detail it captures and how much light it takes in lower light settings.
Because of the big sensor.
Because of the big sensor.
Now, what does it have for a flash? Is there a flash on there?
There is a flash. There's single LED flash.
Okay, so it's not like a big xenon flash like on the Motorola Hasselblad mod or anything like that.
Right, yeah. You're not going to get like a giant flash here, but our camera analyst, Jim, who did a lot of testing, and you can see some of the pictures he took, and essentially what you're getting is a really excellent camera packed into a mid-range phone. So we have
optical stabilization.
We have optical stabilization.
Okay.
We have a wide-angle lens. We have the ability to shoot in bokeh. We have manual controls.
Does it do 4K video? Or only
it does do 4K video. It's not so great. It looks kind of like upscale 1080. So that's kind of a downside. But when it comes to actually capturing pictures themselves, you can shoot in JPEG or RAW. And we edited some. Those are some of our sample shots. But this is the edit this is the Jim in Photoshop editing. That's taken in RAW, and this is him pulling out a little bit of the a little bit of the noise
there.
and getting some of the colors in there.
So now, one of the things that concerns me on these phones that pretend to be high-end cameras is responsiveness, is not shutter speed, but the reaction time of the shutter. How is that here?
Right. So basically, there's a shutter button up top. So if you use that to focus, it'll take about 0.7 seconds, which is not so great. That's a while if you're standing here pressing the shutter button. But if you use tap to focus and you use the screen itself, it's 0.1 seconds. So a lot more on par with other phones.
It looks like we already have some questions.
We've got some availability questions. Where is it? Can you buy it, and how much is it?
So you need to buy it online. It's on Amazon and I believe directly on the Kodak Ektra. Just go to the site. So it's $3.99. It's GSM only. It's an unlocked phone, but you'll be able to use it on T-Mobile and AT&T.
So band-wise, can it do the T-Mobile and AT&T LTE networks? Does it have T-Mobile's band 12?
It does have band 12.
Okay, good,
I don't remember all the bands off the top of my head. Yeah, so it has bands 2, 4, 5, 7, 12, and 17.
Okay, so what that looks like to me, translating that into English, is that will get you good coverage on T-Mobile with your band 12. That'll get you good coverage on AT&T with your 4 and 17. It will not get you the maximum speeds on those networks, which require crazy supplementary bands that aren't here. And it'll also work really well in Canada, which is 4 and 7.
Okay.
So
good to know.
Yeah,
so you can take this phone to Canada.
Yeah. So let's go to the phone specs. What do we have here for processor? Android version.
Sure.
Has Android been heavily molested?
Android has not been heavily molested.
Good for Android.
Poor Android. It is mostly when you look at the UI itself, it's mostly stock. You're going to find a couple pre-installed Kodak apps. We have a few sharing apps. We have Snapseed that are already pre-installed.
I'm hesitant to call that bloatware because that's like why you're buying this phone.
Exactly.
It's not bloatware if it's what you're here for.
Right. So if you're using Kodak's camera app, it's not bloatware. But you are running an older version of Android. You're running Android 6.0.
Oh man,
Marshmallow.
Have they said anything about a Nougat update?
I asked them, and they're like, "We'll update it when we think it's ready."
That means no. That means Nougat.
And I imagine that just because of whatever tweaks they've done to the camera, it'll be more complicated to update this than like just your standard smartphone.
And how about storage?
This comes with 32 32 gigs of storage. You can expand it with an SD card. So it took up to 256, and you're going to need that if you're shooting RAW or you're shooting 4K.
Yeah.
You'll absolutely need that storage.
Let's take a few more questions.
Is 32 gigabytes the only model they have?
Let me just double check. It is. Yes, it is indeed 32 gigabytes. So
remember, it's $400 as an unlocked phone, and it has these enhancements. So we're about at the price level of we're about the price level of a ZTE Axon 7, which would have 64 gigs at this level, but that doesn't have the custom camera weirdness that's going on here. That's the trade-off. Did we get what Snapdragon is it?
It is not a Snapdragon. It is a MediaTek Helio X20 with 3 gigs of RAM.
Whoa!
So, I mean, I tested it, and it's smooth. It's fairly responsive. Maybe the capacitive buttons could be a little bit more responsive, but that's really something else than how it performs. It ran GTA, which is the game I always test on. So, can't complain there. It's basically not going to be as powerful as an Axon 7, which is already a year old, incidentally. So, that has a Snapdragon 820 processor.
Where is the Axon 8 anyway?
I don't know. I think they actually want to really focus on updating the Axon 7. It got Nougat and it got Daydream. So.
I guess so. But I'm hoping that when you go to IFA, there's going to be an Axon 8 there.
I also hope
that's
that.
A nice phone. Any more questions out there?
We've got someone asking if it's available in the UK, which I don't know that we would know.
Yes. It was actually available in the UK before it was available here. It may be a different variant of the device, and I don't know the details of that variant, but I do remember talking to our PC Mag UK editor when we were looking at this, and he was like, "What do you mean? This phone's been out for a while." And I was like, "Not for us." So, yeah, totally available in the UK.
I think you can get it in most of Europe. I think you saw it in MWC, didn't you?
Yeah, I saw it at MWC back in February. So now we have a headphone jack on here.
We do have a headphone jack, which is always nice.
Can you attach an external mic?
An external? I have not tried, but you probably...
That's just something I try to do with cameras sometimes.
You could. I mean, you could probably pick up more noise when you're recording.
Yeah, because... what'd you get for battery life? How's the battery life on this?
This is around 5 hours when we stream full screen video, LTE, maximum brightness. That's generally about average from what we get for phones about this size. This is a 5-inch screen, 1080. So it's not too demanding, but you can see that it could afford to be a little bit brighter because just when you're outside and you're using it as a viewfinder, it's sometimes a little hard to see.
So let's talk about other devices in the $400 range. So we've got this one. You've got your Axon 7. You have, I feel like the OnePlus 5 is a little over, but you could still put the OnePlus 5 is 430, right?
No, it's up to 470. It's around like 500, so 550. So you're really pushing it.
Not the OnePlus 5.
I would say the G5 Plus, if you get the fully spec'd out version with 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of storage, I think that's like just about 300. So that's your main competition. And if you think about it, like neither of those phones are going to have cameras that are going to surpass the iPhone 7 or the S8. And this actually shoots sharper than the iPhone 7, which is impressive.
The other one that jumped out at me, Honor 8.
Honor 8. Okay.
You know, we forget because that one's about a year old.
And
nobody bought it.
And they're not bringing the Honor 9 to the U.S. So.
Right. But you do get the idea that in this price point, I feel like there's really no one else with this level of camera quality.
There really isn't, and so I think that's really who they're trying to sell to. So like, you're going on a trip and you want like a phone, and you also want a camera that can take good pictures, and you want it in a single device, and then this is it. Because like if you think about it, you can share right through Google Drive. You have a Snapseed, you have a Dropbox. And so it's easier to share, and they have their own built-in apps that will share like right to Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. So
yeah, I think the only thing we're really missing here in terms of competing with a dedicated camera or something like the Motorola Hasselblad is zoom.
Right. Yeah, there is.
I wish it had zoom.
There is no optical zoom, and I think that was something we saw on the Hasselblad that can zoom in. It's a little bit slow to move, but you do get a pretty great zoom. And I know Sasha's used the Hasselblad.
Yeah, I've used the Hasselblad at trade shows, and my complaint about the Hasselblad actually, because it takes pretty photos, it has good zoom, it's slow. That is my concern about the Hasselblad. So, any more questions out there? Okay, great. So the review for the Kodak Ektra is up on PCMag.com. We give it 3 stars because it's kind of a peculiar item. It's not.
It is.
It's not mainstream. It's not the kind of thing where we'd say everybody go out and get one, right?
It's pretty niche. So like the main use I could see someone getting out of it, I mean like point and shoot cameras are not really like, the lower end point and shoots are not really a thing anymore.
They're dead.
Yeah, so because smartphones have taken over, like smartphones have gotten so good that you can just use your phone. But if you want a good point and shoot camera, but you don't want to spend like $800, $900 on it, then this is a pretty solid point and shoot with Android.
But it's also especially because like I feel like the Ektra becomes really useful and the Ektra becomes really interesting when you're dealing with people who want to go one step beyond just hitting the shutter button. Maybe they want the raw capability. Maybe they want to fool with the manual mode.
Right.
Like the Jim Fishers of the world, essentially.
The Jim Fishers, or you want to use the Super 8 app.
Yeah, the funny Super 8 app.
You use Get Video that looks like back in the old days. So.
Yeah, because I feel like in the fully default mode, you aren't necessarily going to see massively better pictures than you would with another mid to high phone, and like people are going to be like comparing this to like an LG G6 as well. But it's once you do that, the RAW thing or the Kodak Super 8 app or playing with the settings, that's when you get creative here.
I mean, if you push the ISO to like 1600 or you like start tweaking the shutter speed or the white balance, and that's really when you can get the most out of it.
Yep. Okay, great. So that has been Random Access and One Cool Thing for the week. We will be back on Monday at 10 a.m. with another cool thing from the PC Mag Labs. Thank you all, and have a great weekend.